Good morning. Y'all hear me? Good morning. Okay. We do have some individuals that are still coming in, but we're going to get started because we have a great day planned for everybody. My name is Tanika Nicholas, and I'm the Justice Reform Partnership Strategist for the Southern Center for Human Rights. And, you can clap. Thank you. And on behalf of the Justice Reform Partnership, I would like to welcome all of you to our 13th annual Justice Day at the Capitol. So we've been doing this for some years now. This is actually my second Justice Day. And if this is your first Justice Day, and if you are unfamiliar with the Justice Reform Partnership, we are a coalition of 80 or more organizations and individuals working for criminal legal reform here in the state of Georgia. We started out in 2015 under the leadership of the late, beautiful Marissa McCall Dobson. I always get emotional at this part. I didn't get a chance to meet her personally, but I'm sure some of you all are here may have met Marissa. And, well, let me start back. We also are live streaming too. So those of you who are online, YouTube, Facebook, and our website, welcome as well. If you're joining us live, if you want to make this a more interactive experience, put your name in the chat and share with us where you're joining us from. We have our members on the line that's going to engage with you, answer questions about the day and about our partnership. So welcome as well. So I never get on this stage and never give honor to Marissa because I wouldn't be in this space if it wasn't for her. So yes, thank you. I get emotional for two things because I know that the shared vision she had for the partnership, but more importantly for the space that I stand in to have this role as a directly impacted woman leading a coalition. And that is her vision, to expand the partnership outside of Metro Atlanta to areas throughout Georgia, which we are doing, but most importantly have those of us who are closest to the problem to be the solution to the problem as well. So I understand that, and I don't take that very lightly. So when I thought about today and our theme, justice is a family affair, and how mass incarceration affects our community and our families as a whole, I just kind of hummed in on the word justice. And everything I learned about Marissa, I got from YouTube, and I got from readings online. And it was this one tweet that I always liked, and it's still there, and I want to share this with you because I have two quotes that grounded me today. But Marissa was our previous public policy director with Southern Center, and I want to share this tweet that kind of grounds what I feel about justice, if you don't mind. Marissa said that our commitment to the issues is not new. We're not camera chasers, celebrities, or bandwidth jumpers. We will continue to defend the rights of the marginalized, and we will never sit back and let fake helpers do harm to the communities we serve. I don't know if you all remember that tweet, but that tweet just means something to me when I think about justice. Our second quote is inspired by our current public policy director, Tiffany Roberts, who is in this space today. Tiffany inspires me all the time, but Tiffany said in an interview some years ago, "Never be so arrogant to believe that an academic degree confers wisdom. Our work requires specialized knowledge, but is never more valuable than the needs of the people we serve. We're vessels, not dictators." I wish the people across the street understood that more. And for myself, I've learned in this space that I am now a vessel because my hope is to inspire others in this space who are leading, who are directly impacted. So that is my bit about justice and what it means to me, and I want to share. So today, right, justice is a family affair. Why are we here? We're here because it speaks to the core beliefs that justice should be restorative, not just punitive, affecting generations and shaping the fabric of our society. It reminds us that justice, when truly served, heals and uplifts communities, fostering environments where every member can thrive. Justice is not just an isolated concept, It is confined within the walls of our courtrooms, but it's not just by the pages of legal briefs, but also across the street under that gold dome. It resonates through the lives of individuals, within the hearts of our families, and across communities. We know that when someone is entangled with the criminal justice system, it is a trickle-down effect that is affected by our family members, our partners, our loved ones, our children, and our friends. The narrative of justice becomes inseparable from the narrative from family. It's a holistic effect. So today, as we are here, we're not here as individuals, we're here as a collective unit. We're here to reform, we're here for justice, for humanity, to challenge the status quo, to question policies that has long favored punishment over restorative practices, and to confront the realities of a system that has too often marginalized those who are vulnerable, and of course, address the intricate issues surrounding mass incarceration. So throughout the day, you're going to hear a lot of diverse voices from those who are directly impacted, from experts, from advocates, from panelists. But their stories and their expertise will share light on an urgent need for justice in a system that it recognizes that our emotional, our societal, and our economic burdens needed for those who are currently incarcerated, those of us who are formerly incarcerated, our loved ones, the things we are still facing, and how we need to prioritize more family-centered policies as an approach to justice. Our fellowship today is a testament of the strength that lies truly in the power of our shared voices. So today is a day of networking. We're going to engage, we're going to fellowship, we're going to have a good time. We've already started that today, right? But it is a day of action. So we have the code on the screen or in your agendas, we have an agenda full of events. So in your agenda, and if you scanned it, it's in your agenda, our agenda for today. You will see we have a lot of hands-on activities today. During our advocacy hour, we're going to engage in a lot of activities. Now, there's a couple of changes to some of the activities, so we do have signs posted throughout the day to let you know where those activities are going to take place. So defer to the signs in the designated areas. If you need assistance, you'll see individuals with these blue stickers on it that say partner, so we can help navigate you all to where to go for activity areas. Yes, so raise your hand. Also, if you're a partner, raise your hand in the audience, seek us out. We can guide you. We also will have activities across the street at the Capitol. So we're gonna have a great day, but we're also gonna have a day with panelists. So to ground us in that though, because we do know that today can be heavy with conversations, we do wanna get in a place where we are spiritually and like-minded. And I think it's more fitting to start that with words of inspiration. And to start that for today, one of our team members, Kennette King, she is our movement policy associate with Southern Center. She's gonna start us with a poem she wrote about Justice Day and to ground us in that spirit. After Kennette, you're gonna hear from Dominique Grant. She is our Operations and Communications Manager with Women on the Rise. She's gonna share an activity about language. In this space, in our coalition, we are very big on language and language justice, and she's gonna share an activity about what that means in this space. So, I'm gonna turn it over to Kennette. I wanna welcome you again to our Justice Day 2024.
Good morning. So, my name is Kennette King. I am the Movement Policy Associate at the Southern Center for Human Rights. And this poem is entitled The Apple and the Tree. And to me, it is why I am a justice seeker and why, to me, it is so important to go back to our roots and to what we know to be able to propel forward. What started off as the springtime blues turned into the beginning of forever. I could feel the warmth of my grandma's smile etch its way into my DNA as she took my hand and walked me down the dirt roads of memory lane. She held a mirror to my face and showed me where I got it from. Obviously my height, the sass on my lips just coated in honey just enough to draw you in close, my thick skin, my birthmark, my determination to stand in when others have been pushed down. My grandma had seen it all. Working the fields till the fields worked her, and today the sweat and blood from her hands still paying the price but not reaping the benefits. Having children thrown in cages, to rot, to be punished, to die without light, to die without hope. My grandma don't take no for an answer. And you are some type of person if you can fix your lips to tell her those two letters. But when I look into her eyes, I see my ancestors. I see their lives made the pathway for us to be able to walk. In my grandma's eyes, I am safe, I am loved, I am free. The blue rings engulfing her pupils are like the ocean. We walk in together and we fly away together, stronger and better because of it. My grandma knows Great Depression. She knows Jim Crow like the disease it is. She knows segregation in the Deep South. She knows mass incarceration. She knows about taking care of children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren because of it. She knows about stepping in when systems have been established to pull us out. But my grandma also knows fried green tomatoes on a rainy summer day can cure sadness. She knows that 100 plus of her grandkids love her so dearly. I hope she knows that pecan pie is better than sweet potato pie. That her pain has given us all power, and that her love draws us in and keeps us close. My grandma is an example put forth and proven that without people, without struggle, without love, there is no and cannot be justice. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you. All right, so today I'm here to talk to y'all about language, and I'm just gonna share a couple of thoughts that I had last night, and then we're gonna get right into it with the quick activity. So growing up, I was called a lot of things, some good, some bad. And I'm here, and oh, sorry, I didn't even introduce myself. Hey everybody, I'm Dominique Grant. I'm the Campaign and Operations Manager with Women on the Rise. But yeah, let's dive in. So growing up, I was called a lot of things, some good, some bad, and those words stuck with me. And like many people, we begin to exemplify what those titles are. For my father, his titles were altered his life decisions. Starting life early, being called a detainee or a menace to society is what the Times told him he was. What we refer to each other as and how we name each other is crucial in our communities. Calling someone by their circumstances rather than who they are minimizes their humanity. We are not our mistakes, we are not our choices, we are not our charges. We are not what society tries to make us be. We are mothers, we are fathers, we are aunts, we are uncles, we're sisters, we're brothers, but more importantly, we are human beings. So I just want you all to ground yourself in that thought today. When you're having these conversations with people and you're talking and these conversations may get heated or they may invoke some sort of passion, just remember that the goal and the point of today is to make sure that we are all humanized. So at the end of this, I'm gonna give out some cards, but we have a card that's called Together in Language, and ultimately it talks about understanding the power of our words. So I'm gonna use a couple of words that I absolutely hate. Yep, like on Walisha's shirt. I'm gonna use a couple of words, but we're gonna talk about the differences and what it is that we can say. So instead of saying inmate, can somebody give me an example of what can be used instead of that? Insider. Returning citizen. Perfect, incarcerated person. So when we're talking about a person that is behind the walls, when we're talking about a person that is behind cages, they are still a person. Understood? They are a person that is incarcerated. Next, what is another word for felon? If you hear somebody say felon, which makes me cringe, what's an example of something that you can say instead of that? Oh, y'all did your homework. Perfect. So justice impacted person, formerly incarcerated person, but a person is not their charges. And let's see. If we're talking about somebody that is handicapped or disabled, what is an example or what do we call people who may have something? I love differently able. Challenged is, All right. Okay. Period. Yeah, so person with a disability or differently able. What do we say about a person that uses drugs? So we'll say user or drug abuse, and as y'all can see, I'm struggling to say these words. So what's another example of a word or a way that we can describe someone that may use drugs? Yeah, so person with addiction, person experiencing drug addiction, or person with a substance use, yes, or a substance use disorder. Thank you. All right, so lastly, I need someone from the audience to come up real quick. I got a question for y'all. Come on. Let's go. All right, hey, how you doing? My name is Dominique. I know we got a chance to meet. So what's your name?
I'm Charles Fulton.
Oh, nice to meet you, Michael Collins. Okay, all right, go ahead, go sit back down. Thank you. All right, can I get someone else from the audience? No, I just need one more person. Oh, come on. Don't be nervous. Hey, my name is Dominique. Nice to meet you. What's your name?
Alex.
Oh, okay, Michelle. Nice to meet you, Michelle. And what pronouns do you use?
She, her.
Oh, okay. Nice to meet you, sir.
Oh, wow.
Holla at you later. All right, so the point in that, and the point in this activity is to please call people what they would like to be called. No one wants to be called someone who they aren't. No one wants to be called a different name. No one wants to be called the wrong pronoun. So just keep that in mind when you're working with people today. Whatever someone tells you they identify as and whatever someone tells you their name is, that is what they are to be called. Cool? Thank you. I appreciate y'all today. There's some language cards right here in the front. You can grab them on your way out. They just explain alternatives to our typical language. Thank y'all.
Good morning, everybody. A lot of short people had this microphone before me. My name is Devin Franklin. I am Movement Policy Counsel at the Southern Center for Human Rights. So glad to have you all in the building today, joining us in these efforts. I would like to keep the program moving. I would like to invite those persons who are part of our first panel, the Youth and Reform Perspectives, the Intergenerational Impact of Mass Incarceration. Could those persons please come to the stage? Yeah.
guess I forgot the question. Is these the questions I gave you?
Yes.
I asked you about them, but I didn't know if you asked me something different.
Yeah.
Were those them?
This
Okay.
one, yes.
Now I'm just asking their name, right? Where they're from and their age. Not gonna ask y'all about y'all charges, because they know about the business. And then, did she give y'all questions? Y'all got them? Okay. But they're okay with doing their first name, right? And their age? Because you like you about 21. How old are you? Hello, everybody. I'm Walisha Wilson. I'm the Client Services Advocate with Southern Center for Human Rights. Thank you all for coming. I'll be moderating this panel with Marissa Pierce of the Deep Center in Savannah and our youth. And as Dominique was saying, these are some people asking me about my shirt earlier. What I am not, an ex-con, I'm not a convict, I'm not a prisoner, I'm not an inmate, I'm not an offender, I'm not a felon. What I am, I can't even read it. What'd they say, Dominique? Doctor, lawyer, entrepreneur, mother, father, I am a person, I'm a human. So we're gonna just kick this panel off, and the purpose of this panel was to talk about, since we're talking about justice is a family affair, to talk about how the mass incarceration has become seriously a just generational cycle. Some folks have actually grown up seeing their dads, their granddaddies, all their uncles and brothers in prison. And so we want to have this panel, the perspective on reform from the perspective of our youth. All righty, so welcome. So we're gonna just start with Marissa. Just let us introduce yourself. Tell us, what do you do at the Deep Center? And if you would like, you can introduce yourself, or they can just introduce themselves with your name and your age. We don't need to know what your hobbies are. We don't know what kind of trouble you need to be in. We don't need to know if you got a girlfriend. Just your name and your age, okay? Pass that down to Miss Marissa.
I'll start. Good morning, everybody. My name is Marissa Pierce, and I work for the Deep Center, born and raised Savannah, Georgia. Very proud of where I'm from. What I do at the Deep Center is that I am a director of youth programs. I work with system-impacted programming, where we go out into the community and just be a beacon of creative expression, of joy, being able to foster different outlets to share the stories of our young people. So one of the programs that I supervise, if you will, is called REP. It's the Work Readiness Enrichment Program. And I have some of my great students from this program. And again, like we said, we're just gonna talk a little bit just about our stories. And if there was anything that could have been done that would have either been a prevention or an intervention to break this cycle. Later, we're going to do a school-to-prison pipeline simulation here in this sanctuary, and we can dive more into it. But I will let y'all say your names and your age, and then we'll go from there. Everybody cool with that? Cool.
How y'all doing? My name is Ari Coburn. I'm from Savannah, Georgia. I'm 17, and I appreciate the opportunity of being here today.
Good morning. My name is Caden Carter. I'm 16. I'm from Savannah, Georgia.
My name. My name is Jordan Parker. I'm 17. I'm from Savannah, Georgia.
All right.
All right, we're gonna get started with the first question. All of y'all are handsome, but Jordan got casket sharp up in here today. I like that. Let me tell you something. I love to see a young man, but a black young man in a suit. I want y'all to get used to wearing that. So I love to see that. Casket sharp. All right, so we're gonna start with the first question. I wanted to ask Marissa, what do you think are the root causes of families being impacted by the system from generation to generation? And why are they not considered before arrest, while being sentenced, and when considered for parole? We need another microphone.
I'll start by saying that is a very loaded question. But when we talk about what do we think are some root causes that perpetuate this cycle, honestly, y'all, I think it's the lack of resources. I think it's the lack of significant training in interventions. I think it's the preparedness of our education systems that push out this no tolerance for any type of infraction, but it's disproportionate with Black and brown students compared to their counterparts. And without clarity, I also think without specific guidelines so that it's equitable across the board, we find ourselves where, again, disproportionately, you see Black and brown students expelled more than their counterparts. There aren't a lot of resources or programmings that can counter adverse activities that are offered to their counterparts. There aren't resources such as therapy that is accessible compared to our counterparts. So I would start there, looking truly at the policies that we have in place, and show me the Carfax, show me the statistics, all the way across the board. Is this fair? Is this equitable? Actually asking questions. I hope we can get into that conversation, and I'll kind of lead it if that's okay, and then y'all let me know. But we recently just had this conversation. I asked, well, when y'all were booked, did anybody ask you why you were doing what you were doing? Did any teacher before the incident or whatever it was that you did where you got in trouble, did somebody say, hey, do you need help? Who said it? Can you tell me about during intake what was said?
Well, when I was getting booked, they ain't say nothing. I just been quiet and took the picture and they put me in the room. That was it. They ain't say nothing.
Was there any questionings about, when we talk about root causes? When we talk about root causes, was there any type of question of what led to this?
Nah, it just be like, it's so many people like this, so many youth. So when you go in there, it'll be like, what you booked for, this, that, and third, trying to be nosy, but you ain't gotta tell them nothing. Just mind your business.
So that's from the other youth there, like what you did, basically, right? One of y'all said that it's how they phrase the question, too. It's not a why did you do X, Y, and Z. It's do you know why you got?
Yeah, that too.
How did they phrase that? Can you share?
Basically, like, I can't say, like, when you get booked, it's gonna be a lot going on because you don't be blowed that you even in that predicament. You don't be blowed, so you ain't don't want to talk. But
For old people, can you tell her what blow means?
blow like mad, like you upset, like depressed, like frustrated. Yeah, frustrated, like you just ain't don't want to talk.
There was a study, and I wrote it down because I don't want to misquote anybody, but of Chatham County Public Schools 2017, Black boys are 6 times more likely to be referred to the juvenile system compared to their counterparts. And I can use DEEP as an example. We offer programming to help mitigate that process where we have pro-social activities to do things after school as opposed to not having anything to do. Is there anything, what do y'all like to do after school? Are there any activities? Do you think that could have curbed something? Let's talk.
See what I do when I get out of school, play the game, chill with my family, you feel me? Just chill, go to work. I go to work too, Like, spend good time, you feel me, with my family, just chill.
Y'all got anything y'all want to say?
So what do you, what's your name, Caden? Okay, since you the cutest on the panel, I'm gonna sit down and ask you the question right here. What do you think, since you're not talking, so I like to get people engaged, what do you think was not done or could have been done better that would have resulted in a different outcome with your involvement in the system or how you were treated once you were involved? So I'm gonna say that a little differently. When you did come in contact with the law or were sentenced in a certain way, is there something you thought could have been done a little bit differently, or you could have been treated a little bit differently?
I feel like me as myself, like I could have been a better person to keep myself out of that predicament. And I feel like it could have been like more people like me, like older people, could have been a better help and like show more guidance and stuff like that. And I also feel like in the communities where I come from, it's like everybody don't know how to be themselves. They just think they try to be as what people betrayed us to be, but that's not really who they is.
You know, I had a question with a young man, my nephew, a long time ago. That was a really good answer, and you reminded me of what he said when I asked him about, you know, why do young people not want to go to church, or why do young people get in some of the trouble that they did? And he said, basically, because of y'all. Y'all run us out of the church because we got dreadlocks. Y'all run us out of church because we wearing blue jeans to church. Y'all run us out of this and when we want to do certain things, or we always fuss at y'all. So do you think maybe with you saying that, lets me know too that you feel like y'all probably need a little bit more support from us? We need to learn some of these words. What word you use? Blow. We need to learn stuff like that. So we need to meet you where you are. Y'all hear that, old people? We need to start meeting our youth where they are. We need to learn what word blow means. Huh? And so basically that's what they're saying. A lot of young people are reaching out, but they need us to meet them where they are and support them and give them that. So that's from what they say, out of the mouth of the babe. So he told you exactly what he needed. Okay, so Marissa, what alternative options should legislators, judges, and the policing system consider when holding people accountable? And why wasn't there outreach sooner? We can worry about the second part. What are some alternative options should be considered when holding people accountable as opposed to jail?
I think emphasizing the root cause, number one. I think being abreast of all of the new developments about being trauma-informed, about restorative practices, about understanding implicit biases that may come across when we're, creating this legislation, and also speaking to the young people who it actually and directly impacts. It's one thing to speak for a group or for a population. It's another thing for them to be at the table as well. So I think before you're making decisions, or if you're reacting to an incident, a huge high-profile case or whatever, let's try to be proactive instead of reactive.
Okay. All righty. So let me ask Jordan, why do you think the school-to-prison pipeline is the first and only reaction? So basically, why do you think locking y'all up is the first result as opposed to finding more productive and alternative strategies for y'all to do? Why do you think they want to lock y'all up first as opposed to giving you something different, a way to hold you accountable in a different way than locking you up? Why do you think they choose to lock you up first when y'all do something people say wrong? Why do you think they choose to lock you up first as opposed to finding alternative ways to hold you accountable? Why they choose jail first as opposed to something else?
Why they choose jail first?
There are many ways to hold you in trouble, right? So if you would stand with me and you got in trouble, I would whoop you. I'd make you cut the grass. I would not give you a video game. I would take your allowance. I'd make you go out and volunteer. There are other alternatives you can do when a person get in trouble. So why do you think with our youth get in trouble, why do the first thing they want to do is throw you in detention and lock you up?
Oh, they don't care to know. You probably ain't do it. You probably did.
They assume that you did it?
They probably assume you did it.
They
really
don't care. Okay. Anybody else want to chime in on that? What do you think?
I think it really start like when you go start from school, like 3rd grade, you start getting suspended, and then after that, after detention, you get expelled. after expel you outside, cause you know, mama probably at work while you outside, while you suspended. Then that's when you get in trouble, and that's when everything starts.
Okay. So I think is Nikki back there?
Daddy probably at work. Some people, I ain't lie, daddy probably at work. Some people ain't got no daddy. So, and that's when the little man probably outside ain't got nothing to do, probably bored, you know, looking for something to do, and then get in trouble.
Yeah, and that's what it is, idle hands are the devil's workshop. So that'll lead me to my next question. Caden, what do you think are some alternative things? So from, like you said, you felt you had already held us accountable for not meeting you where you are. So if we were judges, all of us were judges in a courtroom, and you did something, and you know you may have done it, give me a few things that you felt like as a judge that we should probably consider. We still want to hold you accountable, but give me a few things off the top of your head that you think would be appropriate punishments as opposed to locking you up.
Probably community service.
You gonna have no problem being out there in your orange vest cleaning up trash?
Making the environment look better anyway, so that'd be a good one.
Okay. You sure you ain't from New York? Okay. You got anything? What do you think is the appropriate option? Then lock you up.
I feel like if it was
Talk louder
like
in
more
the mic.
jobs, I said if it was more jobs in the community, that I hired them at their age, like 13, 14. Because, you know, nowadays you got to be 18, 17 to get a job.
So you think maybe a work program? Yeah. You know what, now that you mention that, when I grew up in foster care, so I was in a group home. And before I could get in any trouble, they made me go to a work program. And they stopped it. And I was 15, working at the government center, filing as a data clerk. So that is really, that's something we need to consider. A work program, because most of the folks doing it, people doing stuff out of poverty and wanting to get something. So that will solve a lot of problems. Because y'all want to contribute and help do stuff too, right? Have a little money in your pocket. Okay, so we've got community service, we got a work program. What about you, Jordan? What's an appropriate alternative to hold you accountable? Then locking you up.
Probably a monitor.
He said a monitor.
Okay, wearing a monitor, but I'm gonna talk to you about that later, young chap. Okay, because I know we're gonna grow y'all into that now.
Oh yeah, more pro-social activities in the community.
What now?
More pro-social. I don't know how to say the word. Pro-social.
Well, I don't know what that means. What that mean?
More pro-social activities.
More pro-social activities.
In the communities.
Okay. All right, Jordan. Are y'all taking note, the ones who work with youth and advocating for youth? So he said, so we have more pro-social activities. So I take it that would just be?
Basically, anything that will curb adverse activities. So coming in, and I don't know, it can be sports related. It can be creative expression.
Okay.
It can be academically charged. It can be STEM activities. Just basically activities that will get you out the streets.
Something that keep you busy.
There we
So
go.
from the mouth of babes, these are things that they say they need. Okay, I don't know if Nikki's in here. What's the time check? We still got 15 minutes. Oh, 10:45 is the next transition. Or is it Q&A at 10:45? Q&A is at 10:45. Okay, I feel like okay. So it's now 10:45. Huh? Oh, I'm just trying to make sure. Okay.
I'll say something while we're
go ahead.
figuring out. I just think it is so important, y'all. We have to exhaust every option. We have to exhaust every option before putting our boys in handcuffs, before giving them sentences and charges that can be lifelong, or even for the rest of the year. If you're expelled, you cannot go back to your home school for an entire year. For an entire year. What are you going to do at the house? And then we wonder why they're getting into, activities and doing X, Y, and Z is because they can't go to school. With the REP program, it's an alternative schooling program, so they can't go to their home school. So we provide academics where they can get back to grade level as opposed to being home. They can do their classes asynchronously on the computers. We have pro-social activities where we have yoga instructors come, where we do different activities like, what did we do for Valentine's Day? We had a florist come and they taught us how to make arrangements. We teach them life skills with our life navigators. We have one right here, Crystal Bridges, as well. Yes, but it's a space where you have not only teachers and educators, you have life navigators, you have a behavioral aid, you even have some probation affiliates there as well. But all together, we create a space to where they can reach their academic goals, but also their work readiness goals, and then the intrinsic motivation as well. So their personal goals their personal goals too.
Well, let me ask you a question before I do one more thing. I wanted to ask you, what do you want to graduate high school. What do you want to, when you do that, you want college, military, what do you want to do?
Probably gonna get a trade.
He said get a trade.
Get a trade. What would you like to do? What kind of trade? Forklifting, okay.
He said forklifting, y'all. There we go.
What about you?
Me? Yeah. When I finish school, when I graduate, I'm gonna get my high school diploma first. Then I'm gonna drive trucks. And then get my shit up. And
Come on, CDL.
if I don't do that,
He says benefits and security. He gonna go into the military. There we go. Yes.
So let's give our panel a hand. Everybody has been awesome and amazing. Now, for those of you in the audience, now, who out in the audience, well, I'm sure everybody has gotten in trouble when they were little. Some of y'all just didn't caught. Who in the audience are black males who did get caught that we can connect these young men to at some point? So we got right here, back in the back. Back here in the back. We got Kevin back here. All right, hey there. Got him back here in the back. Just got out last week. Dominique back there too. So y'all make sure y'all connect with them, and maybe possibly, if I may, during lunch, might be a good idea for them to get with these men. And maybe, is that okay? This ain't even my program, y'all. But can we do that? Because for one, I love to see boys get with folks who are doing great things in the community, and all the men that have raised their hand are. And I think part of the problem too is too many of our boys are being raised by women. A woman can't raise a man. So I think we really, really need to put y'all in a space where y'all can connect with some of these men who, I think that'll be a good, women, we go to the beauty salon. And one of the things I always say, I don't work with youth, because I can't deal with my nerve bad. But I have always said that when you're working with the youth, to do some things sort of like barbershop talks, where boys got to go get their hair cut. So whether it's one Saturday out of the month, these barbershops around here hold barbershop talks. That during that time while you're cutting hair, ain't no Nicki Minaj on the video, ain't no Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, all that stuff, ain't none of that. The only talking, because I believe in what goes in comes out. Yeah. The only conversation that's taking place while you're getting your hair cut is how to be a good dad, voter education, gun violence, how to do this and how to be positive. So maybe those are some programs too you might, that would be great. That one and, boys and breakfast or something like that. Sometimes, when you gravitate people, you got to change your social network too. You are who you hang out with, okay? So I believe that. We at this time, the next session is at 11 o'clock. Do we have maybe one or two questions anybody wanted to ask? Right here we got one, and then we got two, and then after that, for the old people who might need to take potty breaks in between before we go to the next, we'll do that one. So we're gonna take one, we'll take two, and then last one here.
So did you guys do the flower arranging? Did you like it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Good for you.
Y'all see me up here saying, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I am so proud of you, gentlemen. I really am. I am just so proud of you. And I want to see you 5 years and 10 years from now. And you gentlemen back there, help them out, assist them. That's all I'm asking you. And you go ahead and keep going.
That's
and
right.
be proud of yourself.
That's right. And we had, I think it's a young lady back here in the back with the blonde hair, and then this one right here in the front. And that was be the last one. All right, you go ahead, go ahead.
I'm very proud to hear of your success too. I'm a retired high school teacher. And so my question for you is, what was it about school that caused problems? What could have been done better to keep you focused and interested in school? Because I know that a lot of students who get in trouble a lot are having problems in school. So what could the teachers, counselors, or whatever have done better to help keep you focused in school and out of trouble?
Yeah, but I ain't like, it really depends like what the school like, cause like the school will be right there in the neighborhood, like right there. And like, boom, boom, trouble. Cause like the school right there in the neighborhood, you could go right there across the street, you could get in a fight, go right there, get in the street, boom. And now they got all type of stuff going on after school, cause school right there by the neighborhood.
So you're saying school is what helped to perpetuate or
Now it
get you
really
into trouble?
depends. Like, you got like certain schools right there by the neighborhood. That's easy communication, and then you got like some schools far away from the neighborhood. That's better for the community. You feel me?
For instance, there's a school in Columbus, Georgia called Spencer High School. They put it in the hood right next to Church's Chicken, across the street from the gas station, right there where the dope boys hang out. So basically, on your way to school, there's too much distraction. Because you be doing stuff, as opposed to where Spencer used to be down Big Drive, out in a couple acres out in the grass. So for one, if they skip school, they weren't going to skip it too far along the street.
Proximity matters, right? Yeah, and if there's stuff going on at home or in the community, it's only a matter of time for it to come to the school if it's close. That's what he's alluding to.
We have you and the young lady who had a hand back in the back, and that's going to be it.
Good morning. I just want to make a statement. I don't really have a question. I just want to congratulate you all for being brave enough to do this panel. I want you all to know that you are Black young kings. You are a king. So anytime you are on stage or you are speaking to someone, you hold your head up. You stand with your shoulders back and realize no matter if you went to juvenile or whatever you've done wrong, you are a king. You are important. You are valuable. Always remember that. And when it's times where it's hard or you feel like you may want to do the wrong thing, find a mentor, find someone to talk to. You don't have to be in the in crowd. You can be your own unique individual. Trust me on that. And lastly, again, you are a Black king. You matter, and we love you. We need you.
Good morning or afternoon. I don't know what time it is at this time. But I had a statement. One of the questions was what could be an alternative to the young men being put into incarceration? I think it's a hard question to ask a teenager to articulate because I think there's greater forces at play, predominantly monetary. Prisons are profit. The more young people that are funneled into that system, it feeds so many pockets. And even with labor, there's free labor or very low compensated labor that's coming out of these prison systems. And instead of building educational institutions, we're building more facilities for incarceration. So really, you young men, I don't want you to look at it as you did something wrong, because it's systematic and it's for profit. So really, if we want to answer the question is to keep people from being incarcerated as opposed to educated, we need less prisons and less private.
I think that's going to be it for the questions because we have 4 minutes before we transition to the next one. But throughout the day, after lunch, you have opportunities to connect with these young men. Those of you, what is Laji in here? Who got in some trouble when they was 14, 15, or 16? I mean, went to jail during that time. What? I'm talking about for the black men that raised their hand and who gonna meet with these men. Right here, what's your name? Trey. Craig. Not Craig. Craig. Oh, like on Friday, Craig. Okay, I am gonna task Craig to find the seating at lunch. I'm gonna task that to Craig to get with them to say, hey, bros, we're gonna be sitting over here. So Craig, all those folks, Craig, stand up so they can see you with the black and gold on. If you all make sure you sit with Craig so you all can be at his table and mentoring with these young men. I am Walisha Wilson with the Southern Center. I'll be doing screenings at 1 o'clock. And this is
I am Marissa Pierce with the Deep Center, and we will be in here at 1:45 for the school to prison pipeline simulation.
Okay, so you know our faces, you know what we'll be doing. It's now 11 o'clock, and I think we're gonna be, we're actually gonna still be in here, right? For a call to action panel on pending legislation, like in 3 minutes. So I think that's it. Thank y'all.
What's going on, friend? If I could have everyone's attention, please. If I could please have everyone's attention. Clap once if you hear me. Clap twice if you hear me. It always works. All right, so I would like to keep us on track for our programming. Everyone who is coming to the stage for the call to action panel, please go ahead and make your way up and we will begin momentarily. Thank you. James has one. I mean, he has one.
Good morning, good morning. How are you all doing today? It's more of y'all than it is us. I want y'all to be happy and make some noise. How are y'all doing today? Thank you so much. I am excited. We are excited to present to you our pending legislation panel. As you all know, we are in the midst of a legislative session. Today is our crossover day, which means today is the deadline where bills must cross from one chamber over to the next. So as soon as we leave here, I want to invite you all. There will be two groups that will be going across the street to talk to lawmakers about some of the legislation that you'll hear about today here from our panelists. And so without further ado, we're going to get right into it. And my name is James Woodall. I'm a public policy associate at the Southern Center for Human Rights, and I'm so grateful for each and every one of you for being a part of this Justice Day, because we know that justice in Georgia, unfortunately, is under attack. And so the work that you all will be hearing about today, the bills and the efforts and the advocacy campaigns that we are engaged and involved in, are very important to each and every one of us, but is also very important to each and every one of you as our Georgia neighbors. So without further ado, let's get right into it and introduce our panelists. First, we'll start with Coco, and we'll go down the panels to introduce ourselves to the group.
Morning, y'all. My name's Coco Guthrie-Pappy, and I'm the Director of Public Policy and Communications at Deep Center. They're not in the building anymore, but shout out to our Savannah crew earlier. They were really great, and we're just, again, like, getting folks from 4 hours away up to Atlanta takes some work.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Wade Askew. I'm the Policy Director at Georgia Justice Project, and shout out to our team who drove 3 minutes to be here. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Isabella Otero. I am the Georgia Policy Director for the Southern Poverty Law Center and SPLC Action Fund.
Good morning. My name is Maisie Lynn Gerton. I'm the Executive Director at the Georgia Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers.
Beautiful. Let's give it up for our panelists one more time. So, as many of you are already aware, it's very hard to be excited about what happens under the Gold Dome when it comes to justice-related legislation. Who would agree? Lately. But fortunately for us, every panelist that we have here has been working on some proactive legislation that we can be excited about. And so I want to give our panelists an opportunity to talk about a bill that they are working on in a proactive manner to ensure that justice is a priority for our state. And so I'll start with Maisie Lynn, and we'll go down and talk about the bill number, what the bill does, who sponsors it, and where it is today.
So I have been working on HB 126. This is not going to be listed on any of the forms because there's really no advocacy to be doing on it at the moment. But I will let you know that it's some legislation. It actually passed both chambers last year. But one of the technical realities of the way the sausage gets made is that if a bill changes in any way in the second chamber, it has to go back to the first chamber for what we call an agree. So our bill is waiting on that agree, and it is a bill that will expand access and better ensure access to what are called out-of-time appeals. So if a person is convicted in our criminal legal system, there are certain timelines on the books that they have to meet in order to file their appeal and seek relief from the higher courts if there's a problem with the way their case was handled. And sometimes those timelines are not met, and it's no fault of that person. It could be the fault of a lawyer, it could be a fault of the postal carrier, it could be many different things that have caused that delay. But at this point in time, the courts have basically extinguished that access. And so this bill would restore that access to people that need to reach those appellate courts in these sort of extraordinary cases.
So I have, along with many of the organizations here, have been working on the issue of criminalizing homelessness for a while. This is one of those issues that has been studied several times by the legislature. They cannot seem to find anything better to do than to continue to create crimes or try to enforce crimes that are basically crimes of survival, right? That are very much protected under the US Constitution, which is not optional. And so we have been trying for the past year to get a bill that is also not on your list, in part because we've just been working nonstop, and by the time this got finished, we did not have it on, but it's SB 498. It is a bipartisan bill that would create an interagency council on homelessness, because one of the things that everybody can agree on is that there's a lack of coordination, there are redundancies, there are issues that people do not seem to be able to coordinate on. And so this creates a sort of executive branch level office and council that will coordinate, that will have some responsibility on this coordination. It will cost the state nothing. It is a bill that has people like Senator Kim Jackson, who we all know and love, who is an ally of ours, and people like Whip Randy Robertson, who is in no way an ally of our side. And so that tells you that we have found a bill that would help us find some better ways to deal with the issue of homelessness that is not just going to continue to criminalize people who are just trying to survive. And so that's SB 498. It is on the rules calendar, which means that it is eligible to be voted on today in the Senate. We are out here whipping votes, especially Republicans who think this will cost something. It will not cost anything. It is just a way to coordinate and to provide some responsibility for the people who say they care about this issue, that need to actually take that responsibility at the executive level and start to coordinate on this issue. So that's SB 498. It is gonna be voted on today. We hope it might be late in the day, but we are really wanting this bill to be voted on and cross over so that we can get this going and continue to support the community.
That's very exciting to hear. So on our end, we have a few bills that fortunately have already crossed over, and our one that is pending, that we are hoping to get a vote on today to get placed on the rules calendar in the House, is HB 1184. So what we at Georgia Justice Project, one of the things we are trying to do is create real alternatives to the criminal legal system. That when there is a harm in the community, that there is an option other than law enforcement, prosecution, incarceration, probation. And instead, looking at things like restorative justice or other kind of practices that fit that mold of what we are terming at the legislature a victim-centered program, where we say, hey, there was a harm committed against me. Let's bring the community together. Let's talk about what I need to heal. Let's talk about how we make this right, and give the person who maybe created that harm the opportunity to take accountability and make things right. This is how human beings have treated issues of harm in communities for millennia. It's not a new idea. And so what HB 1184 would do is to really enable those types of programs to exist. What is needed in any of these programs, as I kind of described it, is that openness, that accountability, that honesty between all parties. In our current criminal legal system, if I steal Coco's phone right now, if I grab it and run, and then I say, Coco, here's your phone back, I'm so sorry. I just made an admission. That can be used against me in court. What we have to do is say, if you are operating in this type of setting, any of your communications are privileged. So this is, again, not a new concept. We have many privileges in the code. So if you enter into mediation through a court, or if you go and speak with a clergy member or your lawyer, those communications are privileged. So this is, again, not a new concept. We just want to make sure that we can enable these programs to get off the ground and to exist as an alternative to the criminal legal system by ensuring that all communications in that context are privileged. Now, HB 1184 passed out of its committee unanimously. It's a bipartisan bill, and we are not yet on the rules calendar for today. And so apologies in advance. After this panel, I'll be running right back across the street. And we are working on really engaging House leadership, if you have already been engaged on this, to prioritize this. It's a time game at this point to get a vote in time before midnight tonight. Midnight-ish, they fudged midnight a little bit. And so that's where we're at. So in terms of a call to action, I would just make 2 notes. The priorities for us are touching on House leadership. That's folks like the Speaker, Speaker Burns, the Pro Tem Jones, the House Majority Leader, Leader F. Strachan, Houston Gaines. There's several others. Kind of, you can go on the General Assembly website, you can click House of Representatives, House Leadership, and there they are listed. Making clear to them that we care about this, that we want to see this get a vote. And then the second note that I would just say, and this is a political note, so forgive me, is we at Georgia Justice Project are engaged in restorative justice. That is the practice that we have agreements in multiple jurisdictions to provide restorative justice settings as an alternative prosecution. Restorative justice has become a buzzword in certain political circles, I'll just say. So I would just ask that you use the words victim-centered programs. Victim-centered programs. That is descriptive of what it is, and so that is the term that we have been using. We had essentially the same bill last year, and that RJ word sends a certain trigger to certain folks. So you describe exactly what it is. Everybody loves it. But yeah, words sometimes have an impact, so thank you.
We're only talking about proactive. Don't have a lot of great news from the juvenile justice front. I do want to uplift a bill that Georgia Justice Project is working on, and I can specifically talk about why we have an investment in it. So it's HB 909, which is, it's making changes to Georgia's First Offender Act, and I'm going to stop there and sort of turn it back over to Wade to talk about that, because they've really done the work on that. But the reason why we're invested in that bill is, what is the legal age of an adult in the state of Georgia? No, 17. You cannot vote, you cannot rent a car, you cannot rent a hotel, you cannot participate in any of the privileges of adulthood, but you are still tried as an adult in our criminal legal system. And so that's really important for us, specifically because what we see a lot in our work is 17 tends to be first interaction with law enforcement. And so for us, having that chance to change the First Offender Act so that it starts at sentencing is a good faith opportunity. And so I'm going to pause there and turn it back over to Wade to kind of talk about technicalities of the bill.
Well, thank you, Coco. So what the bill would do is a couple of things. One is, when folks say the word expungement in Georgia, that's a broad term, and technically Georgia doesn't have a true expungement where case records are fully destroyed. What we have is actually this unique, bizarre, 2-step process called restriction and sealing that I'm not going to go too far down the rabbit hole on this, but for purposes of this bill, what you need to know is current law says that if I get a First Offender Act sentence and I successfully complete that, then automatically the day I'm done, that record is restricted in the GBI's official database called GCIC, in case you hear those letters thrown about. That sounds good. That sounds like what you need. That is incomplete, and it really doesn't do much in the real world. And so when this law, the First Offender Act, was written in 1968, and so the official GBI record may have been sufficient to restrict access to that back then, but we have this thing called the internet now. And we have these private background check companies now that the way they operate is they don't go to the GBI and say, give us your official records. They look for hits for all courthouses all over the country. And they see a hit and they put it on their background check. A separate judicial order is required to actually restrict the access to the court record. That's called sealing. So the law is incomplete. People are told, hey, First Offender Act sentence, this is not a conviction. This will be private as long as you do well. This isn't going to pop up on background checks. And then people come to Georgia Justice Project years later to say, I successfully completed this 10 years ago and it just popped up. What on earth? And then we represent them to go seal that case. So what this would do is to say, we're going to restrict and seal, and in fact, we're not going to wait until discharge, because we asked the GBI for data on this. They said only 2% of First Offender Act cases end up in a revocation and a conviction. That means 98% of people make it to the end successfully. So let's do this at sentencing, and we say, as long as you do well, this is shielded from the public. Because we know that if it goes public at sentencing, okay, 3 years later it's restricted and sealed, that bell has already been rung. It's already cost me a job. It's already cost me an opportunity. So let's do it at sentencing, and we say, as long as I'm successful, it stays that way. It stays private. And so this actually unanimously passed the House a couple weeks ago. It's going forward in the Senate now, so post-crossover day, that'll be a major priority for us to get that fully over the line.
So this is it's not a bill that GACTL is promoting or behind, but it is a bill that is a positive step in the right direction regarding the competency of someone to stand trial in Georgia. It's Senate Bill 533. It's the second one down under the positive bills, because we only have 2 on this sheet this year. Yet to cross over. Good clarification. It can be really easy to be cynical down here, so forgive me. But right now, there's an extreme backlog in the Department of Behavioral Health in allowing people access to the mental health care that they need, just frankly to be prosecuted. And so it feels very uncomfortable to be looking for ways to make it more possible for prosecutions to happen. But the other side of that coin is mental health care that's very needed, because the people in these situations are languishing in our jails and decompensating further, and that could be curbed with access to the competency restoration process. So what 533 will do, it will open up opportunities for those competency restoration processes to happen in what would now be non-traditional settings. So those people wouldn't have to wait for a bed in a state hospital like they do today. They would be able to access it potentially in the jail where they're being held. We have a couple of these programs happening in the state right now. There's one in Fulton County. I believe there's one in Cobb County. The Fulton County program is very robustly developed and is actually a partnership with Emory University. It is definitely the most comprehensive jail restoration program that we have in the state. And while SB 533 doesn't guarantee that any of these potentially created restoration projects, either in jails or in outpatient facilities, would match or be on par with what Fulton County has been able to stand up, it does open the door to that possibility, and to the possibility of getting care to people who need it in a more timely way. And that is a positive step, albeit small, in the direction of caring for people that are facing prosecution while simultaneously struggling with mental health concerns.
So can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me now? Perfect. So Coco actually alluded to this. A lot of the bills that we work on more than the proactive ones are ones that are more punitive in nature and are responding to these hypothetical situations, or sometimes real situations that lawmakers feel it necessary to come down to the Capitol and address, or in their favorite words, send a message. And so we've been working on several bills, and Coco, actually will start with you, on negative bills that, as you see on the sheet today, that need our action and our attention in order for us to stop these bills from becoming actual law. So Coco, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, so in rules today, there is a bill, HB 1283, and it is very simple. All you need to know is that it enables prosecutors to charge children as adults. for aggravated assault without a firearm, right? So what does that mean? It just means that we continue to find all sorts of reasons to punish children and to treat them as adults, even though they do not have the legal rights of adults, right? So right now we're just kind of waiting to see how it moves in rules. I think it's in modified structure rule, which just means that they're going to sort of change amendments on it. But it is likely that it will cross over, which means that it will then go to the Senate, which is not a very kind place. But what that would mean is, again, just echoing a lot of what you've heard up here, it is talking with House floor leaders, Leader Efstration, Leader Burns, and ensuring that at least it could potentially stop, right? That's sort of what I got for that. I think mostly, again, what we're really seeing is sort of a continuation of really bad decisions that were made by Governor Zell Miller back in the 90s, right? When we decided that children who commit any sort of 7 deadly sins offenses, doesn't matter what the circumstances have been, these are children who are displaying behaviors as adults. We know that it's far more nuanced than that, but we will be trying them as adults. And that has never proven to be effective whatsoever, right? So with that, pause, pass it off.
Anybody else have any bills they want to reference?
Negative bills? Yeah, so our job, right, is to defend our civil and human rights. That's the job, which means that we tend to walk through their door and try to explain to them that what they are doing will have really severe consequences for people that they just never think about. I think, and for people that they are very frustrated with. So one of the bills that's on the list is SB 523. That's a bill that is just part of some long-standing context around here, right? And so every time there is a protest in these streets, every time the community gets together to push back against something, and they do it in a way that makes real noise and makes them pay attention, they get very frustrated. And they want to tell you, how do you protest and what do you do? And you're supposed to do it this way or that way, or we don't like that you're doing that. And so this is one of those bills that while it is talking about domestic terrorism, it is not really aimed at domestic terrorism, right? It is another way for them to find ways to put the opposition in little boxes that they can prosecute. And that is kind of what this bill does, right? It continues to add to the arsenal that they will have to go after protesters, to go after student organizations that are trying to talk about international events. It will go. These are the kind of bills that if you don't have some of that context, you're like, well, I don't care about domestic terrorism. Sure, we should probably not have domestic terrorism. That's not what that is, right? That is a bill aimed at the people who are trying to oppose state violence and other things in ways that they do not appreciate. And so while it is technically about domestic terrorism and about the ways in which they want to prosecute people, it is just another tool for them to continue to add to this, to the ways that they want to punish people for speaking up.
I would just add to what Isabel's saying with respect to legal representation in the context of this bill. When the bill was originally filed, as drafted, it raised red flags for us that even someone doing their job as a defense lawyer would be implicated as a terrorist and could be prosecuted to the same extent as a client facing that charge. In all fairness to the committee, they heard that feedback and they made an adjustment to the bill to attempt to carve out a protection for defense lawyers simply doing their job as defense lawyers in a case where this new crime could be prosecuted. But here's the trouble with that. Many times, defense lawyers in these protest contexts are supported by nonprofits, are funded by some kind of foundation or fund or nonprofit organization because oftentimes the people being prosecuted couldn't afford to hire a private lawyer. Private lawyers are happy to help, and so there is this bridge between lawyer and client that allows funding to make the defense happen. There is nothing in the bill that protects those funders. And so one of the collateral consequences, whether intended or not, is that those sorts of funding streams would be cut off because those funders would now be potentially subject to that same prosecution simply for providing defense to someone who is constitutionally innocent if they were to be prosecuted. So, I mean, as Isabel mentioned, it's not yet a bill that the Senate has on their calendar for consideration and vote today. But for those of you, and I see a lot of familiar faces, who know how things happen down here, the trickery that's going to start tomorrow is that a bill like 523, in fact, it doesn't even start tomorrow, it's already happened. What am I even saying? We've already seen this happen this year. Usually it starts after crossover, but a bill like 523 can then be tacked on to another piece of legislation that's already moving, has already been voted on by a chamber. And so it will be subject to much less vetting than bills that go through the normal course, which are already subject to too little vetting. And then we call these bills vehicles. It's a vehicle for this other legislation to move, and in this case, from our vantage point, terrible legislation to move. So that's what we'll be watching out for going forward, is the ways in which they take bad bills like 523 and tack them on to sometimes otherwise good bills, in hopes of seeing that policy come to be without the scrutiny that would typically be required by the normal process.
So just two more bills that are on this sheet, Senate Bills 517 as well as Senate Bill 63. I'll start with 517, and that bill simply expands civil and criminal immunity for law enforcement officers, including off-duty police officers, in cases involving deadly uses of force. And I don't have to explain to everyone here why that's problematic in terms of granting more immunity for our law enforcement officers who are using deadly force, right? We've seen numerous amounts of cases where law enforcement officers act with malicious intent, right, and are not prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law like a normal average citizen would be. And so we're seeing conversations right now about what happened in Athens-Clarke County involving someone who is identified as a undocumented immigrant. And now there's conversations about public safety, and we got to, do more about that. But on the other hand, there's this realization that some people are to be protected from criminal prosecution and others are not. And so this is a concern for us. Senate Bill 63 expands cash bail as well as limits charitable bail funds. How many of you all have become familiar with that legislation thus far? Okay, a few of us. And so one of the concerns about this legislation is that it criminalizes an organization, a charity, a person from being able to bail out more than 3 people a year, as well as if you do so without registering as what they call a surety, you would now face criminal prosecution. And so when we think about the protest, as Coco and Maisie Lynn and others talked about, when we think about people bailing out just family members, right? Not even at a protest. The concern is that we're using the legal system to go after people we don't politically agree with or align ourselves with, or we just simply don't like. And so that bill has already passed both chambers. It is currently now sitting on the desk of the governor for signage. And the call to action there is very simple. Call the governor and ask for a veto. Because if the governor doesn't sign the bill, after a certain number of days, it becomes law automatically. And so the call to action specifically is to ask the governor to veto. All of these bills that you've heard today that are on this sheet, you have a QR code on here that would allow you to see the memos and the talking points for this legislation, these pieces of legislation that if you do decide to go over or to phone bank, you would have access to that information so that you'll know exactly what to say, what not to say when you talk to those lawmakers. I want to pause now and see if we have any questions, if that's proper, because I know this is a lot of information. If we can get somebody to help us with the mic. What's our time? We got about 15 more minutes? Okay.
Could y'all just...
Can you first start with your name so we know who you
sure.
are? And
Yeah, my name is Junior Abraham. I'm a member of St. Bede's Episcopal Church. I'm here as a citizen. Can you clarify the process? So I know you've talked a little bit about crossover day and which ones are where, but could you, or maybe this is someplace on one of these things, so that we know when we're talking where it is.
So in terms of the process from introduction all the way to passage, the bills are introduced, bills can be introduced as late as today, tomorrow, elsewhere, but today's deadline essentially says if you introduce a bill in the House, it has to be crossed over. It's why we call it crossover day. It has to cross over, meaning pass the committee, pass rules, and pass the floor, and it has to cross over to the other chamber. And right now, there's what we call rules calendars, where both chambers have their rules committee meets, and they put onto those calendars bills for consideration for the day. The Senate has already established their calendar, so we know what bills that are in the Senate will be debated today. The House, on the other hand, which is, they call it the People's House, is larger, it's more prestigious, some would argue. Others wouldn't. More chaotic, right. But they currently have only 44 bills to be considered today. We expect that the House Rules Committee will meet at lunch and then come up with another, what we call a supplemental calendar. After about the dinner hours, about 4 to 6 o'clock, we also will see maybe another supplemental calendar, and we will hear those bills all day until about midnight. Sometimes we go sooner, sometimes we go later, but since I've been here, we've always gone later than midnight. But that's generally speaking where bills are. So right now, bills that we didn't necessarily talk about that you see on the bottom of this sheet, these are bills that either did not make it onto a rules calendar, did not make it out of committee, or they've already crossed over in advance of crossover day. Does that answer your question?
It is. Yeah. Right. So generally speaking, because we are pre-crossover, House bills are still in the House and Senate bills are still in the Senate. It's one of the games they play. They tend to not hear the other chamber's bill until after crossover. So with the bills that we've listed, certainly the House bills are still in the House, and these Senate bills, if they are on the calendar, are still in the Senate.
So if it's in the Rules Committee, who do we talk to?
You would talk to, so on the committee sheet, every rules committee has members, which includes leadership of both parties. You would talk to those members that are on the rules committee. So there's a QR code that goes through committees. You would contact those individuals, yes.
James, can you or any of you, what do they do in the Rules Committee? What is it for?
So the Rules Committee is the first committee that a bill gets assigned to is the one that would consider the issue that they're dealing with, right? So if it's a farm bill, it'll go to agriculture. If it's a criminal justice bill, it'll go to judiciary. They just sort of get assigned to all these to all these committees. That first committee is the first hurdle for that bill. The next one is the Rules Committee, and that's the committee that decides whether or not that bill gets onto the floor of that chamber for consideration by the entire chamber. I think what's important for everyone here, though, is that the most impactful person you can speak to is your own representative and your own senator, because those people answer to you. And so those are the folks that, while yes, it is important and helpful to talk to, depending on the bill, right? Like for 1184, I think it is important to talk to leadership, right? Because they have been working with GJP and other folks on this bill for a while. So the people in leadership are helpful, but for some of these other ones, you need to remind your own folks, right, what they need to be doing on these bills.
And I'll add one final point on this. There will be people downstairs, so once this panel is over, they'll be able to help you identify who's on which committee, who you need to talk to. There'll be orange folders down there. And we have a little bit more like housekeeping after the panel that we'll share with you so that you don't go in blind not knowing what to expect when you go over. So we'll help with that as well. We'll go on to the next question.
Yeah, I have like a two-part question, one for the gentleman, and, oh, I'm sorry. And are you a counselor? You counsel? But anyway, for the jail competency bill, how does that program exist? And if it's inside the jail, has it caused the jail to expand? Are they doing more construction for that part? And for the Defense Council, the funding, what does that do with the Sixth Amendment? Does that have anything to do with the Sixth Amendment with cutting the funding?
The funding for...
There was y'all mentioned something about the a council. The
Right.
council.
So we have a public defense crisis in Georgia. We have a public defense crisis in the United States. But we certainly have one here in Georgia that I can speak more smartly to than I can to other states. So, I mean, we have a Sixth Amendment crisis today, and so it will certainly be exacerbated if we end up with crimes that the private lawyers in our state or volunteer lawyers of some type can't assist with. Every time a private lawyer takes a case for free or pro bono, it relieves the need for a state-funded or government-funded public defender to represent that person. And so, as much as I would like to see the government fund the necessary defense for the people whose liberty that they are thirsty to take away, until they're courageous enough to do that, I'm all for the private bar helping. So I guess my short answer is anytime we are risking the ability for a private lawyer to assist, we are definitely just chipping away at Sixth Amendment protections for sure. As for the competency pods at the jails, I do not know of any direct link between the functioning of the Fulton County pod and the atmospherics around the carceral expansion, the hope that they have to build more and more carceral spaces or to access more and more by sort of, like for instance, the Atlanta jail. I don't know that those two things are tied. And I say that mostly because, I mean, they're tied only to the extent that the people that are being held in the Fulton County Jail in need of competency restoration services would be held there anyway. And so I hear your point, but I don't think that I don't think that they're trying to leverage the programs in order to argue for their expansion, though they certainly argue every point they can for their expansion.
So no. We work with a state cohort. It's full of judges and sheriffs and nonprofits, Southern Centers in it. Like there's a bunch of folks in it, and we're really focused on just pretrial reform. And so the good news is that jails in the state of Georgia are seeing a population reduction, right? So, yay. And so what that has enabled some jails to do is to create mental health wings. So in Chatham County, we have a mental health wing. Is it problematic that jails are the #1 mental health provider in the state of Georgia? Absolutely, that's a big problem. And so this bill, the competency restoration, will be able to chisel away at a little bit of that. I think a really good example is in Chatham County, we had a gentleman who had been sitting in our jail for 12 years without a proper evaluation. That is horrific, right? And so it really was an intervention by our presiding judge in Superior Court and DBHDD that finally was like, it cannot hold. We cannot continue this. This is madness, right? And so what this bill would do was ensure that no one sits in jail for 12 years. It would ensure that no one sits there for 3 years, right? There's like, I think everyone in the room can agree to sit, yeah, don't thank me. But I think we would all agree that jail in no way, shape, or form is a place where people are going to get their mental health needs truly met, right? Yes, treated, but not truly met. And so what this would do is ensure that there are more pathways for evaluations and that we can get someone the resources and help they need. Yes, potentially for competency or incompetency for a trial, but ultimately we need to restore that person to a place, right? Again, we can't have like full restoration in a carceral setting, but they certainly deserve restoration to that certain point. So I don't know if that answers a question. If it's loaded, right? It's complicated.
Thank you for being here. My question is, I see all the Senate bills here. Is there an organization in the state that can get this information about, like ground roots organizations that can get the information out to the communities, especially marginalized communities, about what's going on here in common language that they can understand and that they can be advocates for the things that affect them directly?
Beautiful question. And so that's one of the reasons why we're here, right? Because a lot of these organizations that are on the stage are having these conversations on a regular basis. We have listservs where we're sending out calls to action. We're sending out information about bills that are being considered by both chambers and ultimately, going to the governor or that goes on to die. All of our links that people want to share and share the information are on this sheet that you all have. And you can connect with each organization, and every time there's updates. I know Southern Center, we have legislative updates that are going out on a frequent basis. I know these other organizations have as well. So on this document, you have some of those organizations trying to do that work. Is it enough? Probably not. I think we can all, extend a little bit more, but we're doing what we can with what we have to make sure that people know what's going on. And if you have any, other organizations that you're working with, or people have other things that they want to share with the the Justice Reform Partnership, that's what this collaboration, this coalition is for us to be able to put our brains together and put our resources together to ensure that our people that we claim we serve have the information that they need. Thank you.
The only thing I'd add is, we recognize that our listservs are not necessarily getting to people who are truly directly impacted. And so we want to be, I think I speak for all of us, embedded in the community and have those linkages in community. And so if you are interested in doing that, please do reach out genuinely. Also, the flip side of this too is when something good does pass, which hopefully we will have some good things to talk about. I was in direct services for about a decade before I came over to the policy side. So I have an appreciation that a law passing over there doesn't do much to get relief to people. It's got to hit the ground, right? And so we could pass the best law that we could think of, but unless we're getting that to impacted community, we haven't done our job. And so the partnership and the mission over there does not stop, even on the good bills there.
I also think that like downstairs, there are so many organizations that are doing this work. Like shout out to like Women on the Rise, shout out to the Atlanta Community Fund. Like these are organizations led by justice impacted people that we are following their leadership. And I think one of the hardest things that we are all trying to figure out is how do we marry like the grassroots activism and advocacy that our communities need, right? And like what happens with over there, because we need both, right? We need both, and that's one of the hardest things. I know, especially from like where we sit at Deep in Chatham County, you know, we work with a bunch of folks on the ground, and it's really hard to get people to pay attention to the confusing, bureaucratic, often oppressive stuff that is happening up here 4 hours away, as opposed to, yeah, I gotta get a job because I gotta feed my family and I gotta pay my parole, you know, my probation fees, and I've gotta do all these things, right? It's hard, however we marry that, you know, I think we're all here to kind of like figure that out, but that is the thing that we constantly have to be sort of sewing together while also recognizing like the very real barriers that exist to people being able to fully participate in democracy. It's easy for me to sit up here because I get paid to do this. I get paid to be professionally annoying. But like, what a privilege. What a privilege.
So, Ms. Williams wants to say something before she does. What I'm going to ask you, we have about 10 minutes, so we're going to go kind of like a speed round where those who have questions want to get those questions in, and then give the panelists an opportunity to respond.
Yeah, and so we've actually gotten a note from our production staff. And I'm going to actually kind of do what Coco did. I'm going to say there's this really amazing legislation that passed a few years back. I don't remember the date, SB 105. And our esteemed colleague, Wade Askew, is best positioned to tell you guys about it. But it ties into what we've just been talking about. This is the type of legislation that impacts people in a very real and meaningful way, like by getting them off probation sooner than the court, well, sooner than maybe they expected. So I'm going to.
Sure, I'll be real quick, and part of the link here is around voting rights. So I will just state at the beginning, if you have finished a felony sentence, you can vote. You don't have to do anything, just go register. You can vote, that's your right. And so why am I talking about that before I talk about probation termination? Well, probation is part of a sentence. Once you're done with probation, then you're eligible to vote. So, for a felony sentence, misdemeanors do not impact voting rights whatsoever. Short, very, very short here is if you or someone that you know and love has been on probation for 3 years, they may be eligible to terminate their probation early. Georgia has the longest probation sentences in the country by a long shot. We're triple the national average. And so SB 105 opened a pathway for many people. I can't give you legal advice here on the stage, but I will just suffice to say, if you or someone you love has hit that 3-year mark, you might want to talk to somebody, including probation directly, to say, have y'all sent a note to the judge to terminate me early? Am I eligible? And if you need to check in with a lawyer, you know where to find us, Georgia Justice Project.
Okay. Thank you. Leslie Anderson. I'm with the Multi-Faith Initiative to End Mass Incarceration and also JCRC of Atlanta. Just a quick question. One is a very specific question about SB 359, which I understand was kind of put on hold, but it would expand RICO laws, you know, around leafleting and other things. And I had some real concerns about that, and I didn't know how that related to SB 523, and whether you all have any concerns about that popping up on once it makes it over, if that'll come back as a zombie bill. And then the other question I actually was, you kind of answered this, is given how fast things move once crossover day happens, where's the best, I mean, is it just on the listservs to have information about the bills and like where they pop up and show up, and how do people kind of track that now over the next however many days we have left during the legislative session? Thanks.
I'm going to ask a favor. If you have a question and you're able, could you stand or keep your hand raised just so Devin and I can, okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Can I go ahead and ask mine? Okay. So I just had a question. So about SB 523. This is happening today, correct? Okay, if it weren't happening today, are y'all familiar with FBI versus Jonas Fiker? It was argued in January 2024, but it has to do with no-fly lists and terrorism, and you might not be able to answer this if you're not familiar with the case, but essentially, would a Supreme Court decision, if it was decided before legislation was passed, would it be able to affect the legislation that's going to be passed, or would it have to go through the whole process of all that?
Hey, hello everybody. I'm Jimmy Hill. I'm the father of Jimmy Atchison, who was murdered by former Atlanta police officer Sean Kim, January 22nd, 2019. 5 years I've been fighting. And I just want to speak about the bill that protects law enforcement with immunity, from immunity. You know, if they did no wrong, why should they be protected from immunity? Wrong is wrong, no matter who says it or who does it. A Fulton County, in December 16, 2022, a Fulton County grand jury indicted this officer, a 26-year veteran, and indicted him on charge of felony murder, aggravated assault, and violation of oath. Yet his attorney filed a motion to have this case moved to a federal court where they expect more favorable and lenient treatment through qualified immunity. Once again, I say, why would this officer need to be protected? Why would he need qualified immunity if he did no wrong? And bills like this continue to get passed through because throughout history, it had been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, and the silence of the voice of justice when it mattered most that had allowed bills like this to pass. So I just want to speak on about my son, Jimmy Atchison, and these bills dealing with qualified immunity.
Good morning, my name is Vonda Henry. I want to know if you know about this bill. In Florida, there is a bill that, well, let's say, there's been a study that says men mature way slower than women, and that they make certain decisions up until 25 that is not correct, right? And in Florida, in several states, they have this bill that says if you've made a felony, I think it's the age of 19 or before, if you have been in jail and you've been good and you've been wonderful, that they will let you out, okay? I know that Misha Minor was going to introduce something similar to that here in Georgia. Have you guys heard about it? Has it any traction? No? But you do know about the Florida bill that has that?
In education world, which is, I feel like elections, criminal justice, and education are challenging up at the legislature. But in education world, there is a bill, SB 154, which criminalizes librarians, and specifically there is a clause in there that says, okay, so if you are found guilty of obscenity, of distributing obscenity, you go to prison for up to, I think it's like 2 years, but you're allowed good time, which is, I think that's what you're referring to as good time, of like you're the model citizen while you were incarcerated, right? And therefore you get early release. It's different from early release. Is that sort of what you're talking about? Mm-hmm. I don't think anything has been introduced of that. However, there are multiple people up here who have been working on the issue of JLWOP, so juvenile life without parole, which is also what I think I hear you talking about. And in the entire, in the state of Georgia, no one who has ever been sentenced under juvenile life with parole has been released. There's not anything that we are actively sort of pursuing right now, but boy, would that be a great conversation to have with the legislature. And do you want to talk about that, James?
No, we're going to actually keep going to questions, and then I'm going to come back to that because we do have something to say about that part. But thank you. Yes.
First of all, let me thank you all, the Georgia Justice Project. I have spoken to several of you over the years. I do want to say again, thank you for what you're doing, but what I've noticed that has become a big problem also is that we're hiring people that don't really care about people. And that's happening everywhere we go now. And that is what's causing a lot of problems. And I want to know if there's anything that we can do, because years ago, I'm old, so years ago, we used to have like a type of personality thing that we had to take before we were actually hired when we were interviewed. And it was like a multiple choice question thing. So it made them decide if we were the right person and had the right personality to do that particular position. And I wish that there was some way that they could come up with something like that today, because there are people that are walking around looking their nose down at people and acting like they're judging all the time. It has become just totally unbelievable. However, speaking of that though, since you all are doing what you're doing, is this information actually given out to probation officers as well, since they are the ones that actually get to see a lot more of those people than we do? Are they sent that information so that they can provide it to the families of the victims?
So again, we're going to answer all of the questions that are coming, and then we're going to, so for the interest of time, but we're going to come to each question. Yes.
No problem.
Greetings, political advocates. My name is Aljanae, and I am a student in my graduate program at the illustrious Clark Atlanta University, and I am doing my practicum hours at the Georgia Justice Project. My question is related to SB 523. So with the recent raids happening through Cop City, I'm wondering if this bill directly affects the individuals that are protesting to stop Cop City. And my question to you is how do we educate college students or other individuals interested in protesting against this about the specifications around SB 523 to avoid them facing any type of repercussions just simply for using their First Amendment right, which is to protest? And thank you.